Are you saying on that rock and roll can only do a limited number of things, and that in order to have a greater variety of response and expression, you have to go outside rock and roll?
Yes. And there is also an element of sour grapes about it. I feel I'm the one of the people who has been betrayed in a sense. I've not betrayed by a them, but betrayed in a sense by the collapse of one's own visions.
But you keep talking about rock as a limited form, and the rhythm is something that restricts it. But from your own work at Faber and Faber and your own writing, you know that limited forms are often a way through to variety of expression. They're often an aid to it.
Absolutely.
And yet you speak of the rhythm of rock and roll as a limited form in a condemnatory fashion.
No, I don't really. Not entirely. I mean, I've always felt that the actual four in a bar, the verse chorus limitation has been one of the great factors in the growth of the rock song into what it has actually become today.
Surely from your own work on Tommy, for instance, and from what John Lennon did on Imagine, say, they extended the Chuck Berry ideas inside a rock culture.
One does come down to niceties because, as I said, I think, Chuck Berry is irrefutably rock and roll from top to bottom. Elements of Tommy were rock. I don't think Imagine, I don't think of it as a rock song. I think of it as a John Lennon song. I think of it as a song from John Lennon, the poet, if you like. It came from rock culture because Lennon came from rock culture. But I think it was a tremendous departure. In fact, Lennon, in the last 10 years of his life, arguably was struggling with the same dichotomies that I was struggling with, trying to find a way back, if you like, to the simplicity of the form, to the purity of the form, to the expression of something which was greater, because quantitatively greater, because you were speaking for and with a larger number of people, rather than making personal statements. In other words, much more up in the manifesto, much more up in the spiritual level, much more, almost religious level.
And are you trying to do that now?
No, I've stopped doing that.
Don't you think that a lot of young people will think that you've betrayed them by saying that rock and roll can't do a lot of things?
No, I'm not betraying them at all. I'm doing them a great favour. The ageing rock performers like myself have become like Morris dancers. We're doing it again and again and again and again, but we've forgotten why.
But doesn't that invite the obvious question that therefore your views are because you're becoming ageing Morris dancers, and you're actually saying it's all over because I'm all over it?
Are young Morris dancers any better?
Well, wouldn't the previous public singers have said the same about the young Morris dancers 20 years ago? That still doesn't answer my question. The question is, you invited the question, does what you say mean that, in effect, what you're saying is because you've lost interest, then there is no longer interest in the thing itself?
No, I don't think so. No, because I still think that, the young, obviously, will always have dreams and visions and hopes and aspirations.
Having said all this about not going on and this, that and the other, you're now going back out playing with the band.
That, I did say that I miss some of the social side, and I think that's, trying to withdraw slowly. Bit of afterglow going on.
Well, what you're actually saying is that there was this little era called rock and roll, 1955-6 to 1980. Now it's over, R.I.P. Finished.
Let's hope so. I think, I would hope it was well and truly over. The optimism for the future is in the combination of images, poetry or words, and music. Yeah, all my old bits and pieces getting scattered really everywhere. Not everything that has passed through my hands has ended up in here, but there's a fair amount of stuff. Because I've had studios at home since I was about 20, 21, and some of the odd things have actually lasted right through that whole time. This is quite interesting, this box here. I don't know how I managed without these now. Maybe we've got something slightly more sophisticated, but when I first built my studio at home, I found that I had incredible amounts of problems with, like the washing machine clicking on and off, or the telephone ringing, or somebody switching on and off a light, or the bloke's minicab radio and stuff like that. And I rang round, and apparently what I required was a radio frequency interference filter. And you pass the mains through it, and it solved all those problems. Not something that you immediately think about when you know, when you're setting up a little studio at home. You think, well, I'll just plug the gear in and away I'll go. But you've got to have one of these radio interference filter. Belling-Lee. They also make ovens, I think. The first machines that I started to use for composition were suggested to me by our manager, Kit Lambert. This is when the group first started, in 1964. And it was he who suggested to me that I might use high-quality field recorders used in the film industry, which is where he came from. They were made by a company called Vortexian. And he explained to me that on certain machines I could bounce from track to track, and each time I bounced, each time I made a copy, I could add things, and so it would give me a good idea of how a record was going to sound.
So sad about us, so sad about us. Band never meant to break up, band now we'll never make a band.
The atmosphere of that kind of recording was enough, really, to get across the song to the other guys in the band.
Apologies mean nothing when the damage is done, but you can't switch off your loving like you can't switch off the sun.
I write on tape, usually have a few ideas on a piece of paper, a few ideas musically, and I would normally work in a layer of tracks, just maybe a guitar to start with against a drum box, like. That's all right, mama. That's all right with you. That's all right, mama. Baby, whatever you choose. That's all right. That's all right. That's all right, mama. Whatever you choose. Papa dog told me to. That little girl you're fooling with, she ain't no good for you. That's all right. That's all right. And now I've got one track left, over which I shall swear at you. I just wish all this stuff had been around when I had my first studio.